All right, should we get to it?
Yeah, I think so. And I want to first and foremost thank you guys for joining us and doing a Twitter Spaces with us. Really looking forward to learning more a little bit about what you guys are doing and more about this boot camp. But that's kind of what my first question for you was is for those people out there not familiar and those listening when we have this recorded, want to see if you could tell us a little bit more about you and the team, a little bit more about MPL, and just kind of a quick overview of what awaits us here at boot camp, and we can kind of get into the nitty gritty after that.
Yeah, of course. Well, firstly, let me start by saying thank you so much to MBHQ and you, Ryan, for hosting us. MBHQ and the whole team there has been such fantastic partners to the MPL from our journey about 6 or 7 weeks ago since we minted to where we are now. I say this a lot, but MBHQ is one of the very few organizations in the space who vet people that they do AMAs with. I think I went through about 9 interviews, seemingly, with you guys. So I think you're doing a great service to the community, and it's fantastic to be here. So, for those who are maybe not familiar with the MPL, the MPL is the Martian Premier League. We launched about 6 or 7 weeks ago now, so right at the back end of March. Actually, one of the very few projects to sell out in March. If you remember, it was not a great month for NFTs. And we were trying to do 3 things with what we were doing. The first was we wanted to build a game that made sense on the blockchain, and the first part of that is a football manager game, very amenable to the blockchain. We wanted to build fantastic PFP art. I see a bunch of people rocking some cracking PFP art, including some of the tuxes, which are my favourite. I think whether you like the art or not, I do think they are very unique in the space in terms of what we have done. And then lastly, we wanted to build an entertainment franchise that allowed us to keep expanding the world beyond just a kind of one-hit wonder, as it were. And we brought together a team who've actually worked together in the past in various other guises, but a team that includes the former creative director of Harry Potter, former Warner Brothers commercial executive, developers who worked on things like the launch of USDC in order to realize that vision. And actually, here we are now, 6 or 7 weeks later, not only with that fantastic docked team up front, but now a sort of team actually of 20 people working on the project, probably actually one of the largest teams in the Web3 space, at least in NFT Web3. And we're about, I would say, about a week away from kind of launching Bootcamp in full, which will be the first time that individuals in our football manager game begin the world of training and developing their players in order to kind of improve their attributes, acclimatize to Mars as they get ready for the kind of full game rollout. And for those who've not checked it out, do check out our website. You can start to see the map and kind of where all the kind of bootcamp challenges will unfold. So that's where we are today. We're super excited about that kind of start of the journey, kind of phase 1. And I'd probably say we're really excited that I think Bootcamp, and we should get into more detail, Ryan. I think we're shipping a product in phase 1 in 6 weeks that is more ambitious than other NFTs projects' entire roadmap.
Yeah, I would go on to say, just from looking at the artwork and the amount of work you guys have put into the bootcamp map that I was kind of looking at before this, incredible detail and incredible scope, and I'm really excited. I feel like fortune favors the bold in a lot of cases, and I'm really excited to see where this lands you guys. Kind of the first question I have is to participate in this boot camp. Obviously, you guys have done a PFP project. You've minted, or so rather, the community's minted over 10,000 of these PFPs. Is that a requirement for boot camp and to play this game? Tell us a little bit more about kind of what someone out there would need to have in order to be ready to start boot camp in 6 weeks.
Yeah, so what I'd say to people is that in order to do that, you should make sure to get one of our collection. One of our collection will allow you to claim a player on L2 who will be your player. that you'll be able to set their attributes. You'll be able to and then participate in the bootcamp to earn our utility token, which will help you acquire additional skill boosts to increase the attributes and stats of your character over time. So definitely the way to get involved is get the kind of, it's more than a PFP, it's your pass to the MPL is the way that I talk about it. And I think that's definitely kind of stage one. And I think, firstly, thank you for the kind comments on the map, Brian. We've made a really big effort to say that art and illustration and design doesn't end at the PFP collection, which is what a lot of projects do. Um, and you'll see for our L2, which is actually all on chain. Everybody says on chain, the first thing they think of is pixel art. If you check out our white paper, it is not pixel art. Developing a really cool on chain kit visual link to the L1 character that is the kind of player that will go through boot camp. And that's been a really big focus of ours, not just the game but also the design that people enjoy and are involved with as they get the chance to play in boot camp. Oh, I think you might be on mute, Ryan.
Oh, you're absolutely right. I am. No, that's awesome, and I think it's you can tell that that's what you guys are going for. Let's talk a little bit more about the boot camp and exactly what we're kind of going to be able to play here. So I know you mentioned it in the beginning, but I want to make sure it's clear. So this is essentially a manager. Kind of style of game, correct? Or is this going to be several different kinds of games? Kind of reading the descriptions of a few of the locations on the roadmap, it seems like there's going to be a lot of like mini games and things like that that kind of factor into this. So I'm curious to know a little bit more about that.
Yeah, of course, and what a great question. So the core game as we get into kind of phase two, which is when the full game engine will roll out, and for those who have maybe not heard me talk before, we're actually now partnered with a very large Web two, I guess, company, kind of thinking finalizing some of those game design elements for a kind of football management game. But phase one is a boot camp. It is training of the players ready to participate in that game. And each of the venues that you see, six of them will be used in bootcamp, and there will be a variety of games, both on and off chain, and risk-based games that do actually push some of the technology of what we've seen in Web3 quite far. And it is the chance for people to, um, you know, uh, kind of earn additional tokens, which will allow them to improve their player faster. And we've done some quite novel things in each of those. And to sort of give you an example, we have a number of games that you can take risks in order to improve your outcome. Those risks are augmented by different traits of your characters or different attributes of your characters in terms of how you set their finishing or pace. So every decision you make in the game could influence something later on. So to give you an example, if you went to the pet training center, the game might be related to kind of training your pets, for example, and maybe those with kind of better creativity might end up having a enhanced chance of being successful there, or those who have a pet in their profile picture, which is a sort of a quite rare trait in our collection. So we're trying to do some quite fun things that, although this is not the full game rollout, it is the beginning of the earning of our utility token, and the earning of our skill boosts that make sure that everyone is kind of prepared to play on that. And we've had a really big focus internally, not only of building beautifully illustrated designs, and as you say, you've looked at the map, Ryan, but as we go live, each of these you will go inside and be able to sort of see what it's like inside each of these venues. And you'll be able to, kind of play these games. And some get into quite a lot of complex social coordination in order to optimize outcomes, because we're a big fan of community involvement and kind of community coming together more than just on-chain stuff. So we're quite excited about, some of those. So, you really should see Bootcamp as a kind of fun way of lots of small mini games with cool tech, as a way to make sure your players are optimally prepared for the full game, which is a football management game.
Okay, so I love comparisons because when you think like I do, you need a comparison to compare it to, right? So, um, one thing that I play I've played Madden, American football video game in the past, and I know when you create your own player, you get drafted, and you have to do all these mini games like to go through the NFL Combine, and you have to run a 40-yard dash, and they're essentially just mini games to kind of reward people who kind of grind out and figure out the mechanics in making their optimizing their player for their first season and in retrospect the rest of their career. And you kind of have to commit to those stats in the very beginning. Would you say that that's a pretty similar comparison here? And on top of that, is this something that changes season to season, or is this something that will always affect the this character's particular stats moving forward?
So yeah, it's a really good comparison. This is the preseason training, right? That kind of rewards people, just like you talked about in Madden. And over time, the cadence of the game will be preseason, transfer windows, playing the season, winning, losing, management, and then kind of winning, success, and then moving back to the kind of next preseason. And very much the intention is that choices do matter in this. So boot camp, there will be some resets after boot camp as people learn more about the game. But over time, the intention here is to try and make persistent choices. Because one of the things, if we think about founding design game principles, is if your choice is not meaningful, then it doesn't feel very compelling to play something. It has to feel like it has a kind of action. Now, that doesn't mean we won't put in some mechanics that may give you kind of redos at various points, but it can't be the case that everything is completely flexible indefinitely, because we want the community to be strategizing about what the meta is, what the right things to push on are. We want the ability for us to make changes in the game balance that reward people who are kind of looking ahead and strategizing, because the kind of player that I think, by the way, we see this a lot in Web3, they're natural traders, they're natural people looking for trends analysis. And people who play football management games are just like this, where we want that meaningful choice to matter. So I think your comparison, Ryan, is excellent. And very much so, we do want some of the choices, in terms of your choice of kind of finishing, focus on finishing or focusing on creativity or passing, to sort of matter as we get into the full game.
That's awesome. No, that's great, and it sounds exciting, and the things that I'm reading, the map and things like that. One thing, especially with on chain games and games on L2 that I've had in the past, again, like you said, consequences matter that I've played. Um, you know, One thing that kind of has um, helped make others stand out is how well the documentation for those things are. Is this something that will be well documented on how to what each one of these venues and mini games are going to be, or and I apologize for that. These venues and mini games are going to be, or is this something that you kind of want the community to kind of figure out as you move on, and kind of like almost like hey, to optimize, this, fair play hut, you got to figure it out on your own. So I was curious about that.
Yeah, no, great question, Ryan. And I do think some of this is about exploration by the community. So I think some people will look at some of the venues on the map, such as the kind of the gym, and they're probably thinking, oh well, the gym, maybe strength matters, maybe that sort of makes logical sense. And then maybe when they're looking at things like the keepy uppy club, maybe it's passing. At the pet training center, maybe it's pets and so forth. There's a whole bunch of scenarios. We want people trying to think about, okay, well, what do we, how do I optimize when there's going to be multiple different games in different locations? It is almost certain that you will never be able to optimize for everything. So as we sort of say, strategy is as much about what you choose to do as what you choose not to do. So we want people to sort of recognize that, you need to make some sensible decisions, but that doesn't mean you'll get every challenge will be in your favor. Um, and we think that's fun, right? We think that, one of the things that we've really admired about lots of games, both Web 2 games like Magic the Gathering, and also other Web 3 games like Wolf Game, is that community coming together and helping to solve problems and define the meta and argue about it is a really important part of gaming. As much as the game itself. The community around it is what's really exciting, and we are deliberately designing in mind to create a great game independently, but a game that encourages community interaction, debate, and strategy that keeps reinforcing what I think is actually an incredibly strong community in the MPL already.
That's awesome. And I'm kind of sensing that again just by looking at the map, and I don't want to hint on it too much that I'm looking at the map as we talk here, but one thing that I'm noticing, and anyone who's played a video game before, there's the cloud, right, that covers up undiscovered parts of the map that I'm looking at here, and I'm seeing, exploring a little bit past what we can see here and what's listed on the list of venues. Everything looks to be in view, but I noticed, La Rosa Blue is kind of still covered in clouds, but you can kind of make it out there in the corner. Is this kind of a hint that there are going to be more things to this boot camp that will be unlocked, or is this just kind of a hint that, hey, there's more to this game than just what this boot camp's going to be, and then the whole map will reveal some of those things?
Yeah, what a great question, and thank you for noticing the clouds. We actually had a last minute panic at the end that we didn't have enough clouds, so we have more clouds,
Can
and
never have too
probably
many
not.
clouds.
Probably are enough clouds now. We actually don't have enough clouds for how much of the world is beyond this location. Um, One of the things, I'd probably say about the MPL is that, on the one side we are building, and that is 80 to 90% of our focus, a football management game on the blockchain, where you can own, football owned by you, played on Mars, is the kind of slogan. And but the Mars universe, the MPL is only one part of it. If people have seen our kind of origin story and narrative and our comic drop done with a bunch of ex-Marvel people, there is more to Mars than we know yet, and that fog of war will continue to unreveal. Some stuff will be, the revealing of the biodomes where stadium and stuff will take place. So very MPL, but some of it will be stuff that is not necessarily MPL related, but Mars related in the sort of broader narrative and story. So we do intend this to be evolving. And one of the kind of reference points we had is, for those who are kind of real big gamers, kind of Total War and so forth, as the kind of map slowly evolves and you see what's happening elsewhere and how that might influence you. And we want that to be both MPL related, but also Mars related, which gives us the creative freedom, and a lot more creative freedom than maybe other football management games being built on the blockchain, to do more than just football management games and reward our initial holders by expanding the universe beyond that. And that's been a very deliberate creative decision, that what we want to build is a world of which the MPL is a absolutely central tenet of it, but it is not the be all and end all of what we're doing, which gives us a lot of creativity. And if I'm honest, if I'm sat with the former creative director of Harry Potter and our founding team, I want to give her as much freedom as possible to build out everything we want to do, rather than just being limited by one thing, although that is the focus for the moment.
Right on. Yeah, that reminds me of like the game Splatoon, where obviously it's a game about paintball guns, but the universe they create it with that, and the game within it, that's not just about that, but it's heavily centered around it. So I really do like that explanation there. One, we hinted at it, the storyline, and how there's more to this than just the MPL. And you go to the website and you read a little bit more about the story, and you see the comic book that's coming, and you hear about Professor Gaffer and things like that. In a lot of online games, one of the catches is like, hey, the players can actually help mold the storyline of the world and things like that. Is that an element that you guys are trying to add into it, where the community also gets like a say so in kind of how the storyline kind of weaves, or is that something that you do want to keep to those creators that are working on the project as well?
Yeah, what a great question, and it's actually a very difficult question to answer because I think it's complicated, and I think I think many projects who sort of say we're going to give it to the community, it's actually just laziness from creative direction. It's like they sort of pass off responsibility to the community as the narrative builders of everything. Um, but on the flip side, of course, we want the community to be involved in building it. So it is a delicate balance, but it is not a purely decentralized process because, we do want creative coherence. We are not lazy founders, and I want to empower, John Nee, who is the kind of lead person doing our comic and comic series, as the former publisher of Marvel. I feel like he should have a strong voice in things as much as anything. But that doesn't mean I don't want the community involved. We don't want to where their characters become characters in our stories. There aren't commercial arrangements with them for their rights to their character. That's 100% on the agenda. So from our perspective, it's a balance between the middle because we are building a cohesive, coherent world that has a lot of expertise in building that creative direction, and we want to empower the community to bring great ideas and bring their characters into the story in a way that benefits them both emotionally, where their characters in the story or that idea is a kind of plot line or something, but also benefits them, potentially financially through commercial arrangements as well.
Definitely. No, there's I think there's a fine line between, asking for community collaboration and asking the community to figure it out. And I've seen projects that do that. So it's good to know that, you have all these really heavy hitters in when it comes to comics. And I'm a huge comic nerd myself. So I honestly didn't know that until you just said it. So that is super crazy to hear. But yeah, it's good to know that you guys have that mindset and have that understanding, and you're walking that fine line.
Yeah, and maybe it's worth dwelling on the comic slightly, Ryan. Is our snapshot just got announced, which is Wednesday, 5 p.m. BST or 12 p.m. EST, um, which is, everybody will be getting our origin story comic done alongside John Nee, as I said, the former publisher of Marvel. That's actually not only a digital claim and also a good comic written with actual story. Um, but it is also a free physical claim. It is something you're going to be able to put into your hand or into your comic book collection, for all our holders, and we're really excited for that as well. Lots of people talk about digital, but I think we want to execute on that and make sure that people get kind of physical benefits as well as digital benefits in the ecosystem.
That's awesome, and I didn't realize that. I'm glad to hear that because I'm about to press the button on buying one on secondary myself because I love the artwork and I love the comic book artwork as well. Uh, one question I have is that going to be something you said digital claim, physical claim? Is that comic book going to be something that if I go on OpenSea, I can click and I can read through it? Or is that something that's going to be gate kept through additional benefits within the NFT?
So yeah, I mean, it will be gate kept in a PDF reader, but I'm not going to be out there stopping people from sharing it. Is what I'd say. But if they do share it, but obviously the different covers that we have, and there are other benefits like the first edition comic or edition one, as this one is, will also have a small governance token entitlement as well, which is exciting. But yeah, it will be gate capped a bit. But what we're not going to do is, if somebody kind of shares it with their friends and so forth, I'm not going to be running around trying to get it deleted off Twitter. Is probably what I'd say. I mean, it's very, very unweb3. But obviously, it's only the people who hold it will be getting the physical edition, and what I would say is that it is a wonderful story that we want to tell, and also kind of tell to as many people as possible. It is the story of Ella, who is our lead character, sort of leaving her kind of quite dreary office job, as I'm sure many of us can sympathize with, in trying to take a new direction with Professor Gaffer, who is sick of Earth, in kind of sick of fixed structures, sick of the idea that everything that we do is locked into a certain way that the society has dictated it should be, and is deciding to try something new on Mars. And we learn a lot about Ella and Edison, who become two of the main characters, and more about Gaffer's motivation for leaving, and then actually start to see maybe what the Martians are like, as she kind of buzzes up to Mars through the transporter. So it's a real story that I think one is a kind of recognizable story that we see in many places of trying something different when something else hasn't worked. And I think that's maybe something a lot of us sympathize with. The world is, given the world at the moment, but one that also offers kind of hope for a new start, but one that we know that wherever you go there will be threats, there will be nothing is perfect, and sort of leads us up into what will be comic 2, 3, 4, 5 going forward. So we're super excited for lots of people to kind of read and be part of that story, but yeah, there will be a little bit of gatekeeping, at least for holders, at least for the short term, although I'm sure it will get shared at some point.
No, and I want to be clear that that question wasn't on a criticism on this end. No criticism if you answer it this way. I know that being in a few meetings with for other projects with people, I'll say in the comic industry, it seems like there's a huge rush to try to figure out, hey, how do we do this in a genuine way? Because there are a lot of people in the art community, in the comic art community, who do not like the understanding and idea, at least their understanding and ideas of what comics are. So I was curious if you guys have run into that yet, and if the people that you've been working with to get the comic out and to kind of create that have had any positive stories on how it like is learning a little bit more about what NFTs are, and how they can have a positive impact, and if they're not just these cash grabby ways to do things. They are a very influential way to get media out to people.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting question, by the way, Ryan. A really really good question. There's definitely were a couple of maybe some of the original artists that we spoke to who just don't want to do NFT stuff in comics, which is fine. That's obviously their prerogative. So yeah, there's definitely a kind of varied persistence. But I think many of the people we're working with, in their art form, what they see is it's like they if you put aside Marvel and DC, who continue to work, most independent comics who are telling, I think, genuinely beautiful stories are basically not profitable, for the most part, or it's sort of shoestring budgets, etc. NFTs all of a sudden offer this way for people to engage in communities they're passionate about and read stories and be involved in them. And it gives a whole new medium to comic that maybe sometimes removes the barrier of learning about it or going to your local comic book store where you may not know what you're looking for, and what you're meant to buy and not buy. And I think a lot of them see this as a whole new medium of people being excited about it. And I know for me, I'm not a big comic person in general, but I've been so excited about this process. I've purchased all sorts of comics since since starting the MPL, and I think there is definitely a mindset shift of this is a new way to deliver and explore comics with people, where they feel a sort of real sense of attachment to the story in a way that maybe others don't. And I think that's got to change over time. And this is a big broader point, I think, Ryan, where the NFT community, if you just look at it completely from the outside, there are many rug pulls, there are many things that feel disingenuous. And until, as a whole collective space, we mature, we're not going to, bring everybody on board in terms of doing that. I don't think any projects like MVHQ, MPL, just looking down the PFPs here, Rumble Kongs, etc., are all projects with genuine ambitions and not rug pulls, obviously. But that's what the press focuses on, and I think we are so early that, we're going to expect it to be a bit up and down about people's attitudes until there is a much longer set of established norms and so forth in the space that will, bring in increase, more and more and more talented writers, talented artists, talented commercial people, etc., to drive the space forward. In comics, I think will certainly be one of them.
Definitely, and I love the world building aspects that avenue gives you guys. And one thing, I got a few follows so far as we've been talking, and I saw, and I'm not going to call them out, but in one particular person's uh, uh, their bio and Twitter, it said that MPL is the next Board Ape Yacht Club, and I love that because I feel like every project kind of has that like cockiness to it, and I love that cockiness, especially when it is towards a project that looks like they have themselves figured out. Because I'll say, I think Board Ape Yacht Club has come into what they were hyped up to be in the first place, and I think that a lot of NFT projects are hoping to come into what they've hyped up and they've talked about. Seems like you guys are putting forward a lot of effort and a lot of work into everything before things kind of get kicking. So I love that. Is that something that you guys have kind of had a balance of, or was that a strategy that's like, hey, let's get as much stuff out here as we can while we continue to build this game, build this community, and build this this kind of world?
Yeah, again, great question. The first thing I say is we're, obviously, the Board Ape Yacht Club is what a phenomenal project, with fantastic creators. And that, I know the other side was a challenge, but what they've done is, unprecedented. But the other thing I'd say is we're not trying to build the Board Ape Yacht Club. We're trying to build something different. That is what we're excited about. So, if we only got a fraction of their success, I'd be very happy. But we're also not building the same thing. So, sort of comparisons in the space can sometimes be unhelpful. Um, but more broadly, how have we thought about it? A lot of us have done digital product for a long period of time and software and built businesses before. And there's a sort of slightly interesting phenomenon in NFTs, which is, build hype up the floor price to 1 ETH or whatever the number is, and they don't really deliver anything. And then everyone's like, well, where's the floor price 0.2 now? And it's like, well, we haven't done anything yet. And it's like, well, why are we building this hype if we're not, creating those kind of market spirals? It's not going to deliver anything. And, it's done through a whole variety of things, influencers, kind of endless giveaways, whatever it might be. There's a whole bunch of kind of growth marketing tactics that are used. And I think in my mind, that's not a sustainable business model, and I sort of look back to my sort of former career working in tech, and I'm like, well, if I onboarded 10,000 subscribers and then they all disappeared 3 months later, I mean, that would be a disaster. That's not what real growth looks like. For us, we have deliberately thought about phasing product on kind of roughly 6-week cycles. So phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, etc., such that we continually deliver an enhanced experience for everybody. So that benefits the NFT quite short term mindset, which I totally understand. It's not a criticism, but allows us to think about our kind of floor price growth and sustainability as one of a sustainable long term growth, as opposed to one based on wild swings up and down, up and down. So for us, this is how do we build towards success on a in the long term on a 3-year cycle, but on a product release cycle that is sort of 6 to 8 weeks every time. So people have always got something exciting and new to look forward to. And that's been quite a deliberate strategy. And I think partly comes from all of us being 10, 15 years in our careers and having done a lot of this stuff before, and not trying to do something that we know is achievable, and also meets kind of user expectations. So that's not really what the Board Ape Yacht Club has done. They've done something different and done a phenomenal job. But that is for us, success is long term sustainable growth with regular product release. It is not in that as a deliberate decision, and we're trying to deliberately avoid hype cycles. Don't get me wrong, I get excited when somebody famous or big influencer buys us. Still, I think Diggling bought about 20 a few days ago, and that was very exciting. But that's not the aim. The aim is long term sustainable growth, and that's what we have designed everything in our business around.
That was a beautiful answer, and I love that, and never ever feel ashamed for being excited when someone big hits your project up. That's always a fun thing, and you guys have worked really hard to deserve that kind of the excitement. So one thing that I have, and again, this could be just my lack of ignorance on the project before the past few days, learning about it. Um, but we have training camp coming up, or rather boot camp coming up, which is a little training camp to kind of better our players to get ready for the season. Tell us a little bit about the teams, how many teams there are in this league, if that is something that's been revealed yet or not. Kind of wanted to know a little bit more about what we can be in store for when the boot camp is over and we have to pick a team.
I'm sort of looking through the user list to see if Tom is listening before I reveal something he'll be mad about. The, we actually spent a lot of time. So actually, we were all on a away weekend this weekend. We all physically got together to actually spend some time with no laptops, like talking about some really difficult and complex design decisions, and some longer term stuff. A lot of that, that there will be teams that will come. Everybody will be able to have a team, but there may be some more prestigious teams than others that are competing in the kind of ultimate leagues. And there'll be some mechanics around that do give kind of genuine senses of progression. But I probably can't go into that sort of too much at this stage as we sort of get into phase two. But what I would say is, kind of three big design principles that are important to us. One is that everybody, if they have one NFT, can play the game and have a team. That is a big, important design decision for us. And they fill up the rest of that team with what we call synthetic NFTs or loans that they make, such that they can play the game and enjoy the game. Right? That's really personally important to us. That you can enjoy it and have fun. The second big design decision is that that there should be opportunities to kind of get into maybe some more elite leagues that maybe have some story attached to them as well. But I can't go into much about that. That you can drive promotion, relegation, up, down, etc. And I think the third principle is that as our teams are done, is that we provide social content that makes the world feel very real. I.e., what happens on a Saturday afternoon in the games we're talking about in the studio, what happened, in making sure we zoom in on different parts of the ecosystem to give them exposure about the games that have gone on. So I can't go into too much about how we have designed it. We have made some decisions this weekend or finalized decisions that we sort of had been floating on. But everybody will be able to have a team, but there may be some more elite tier teams that maybe get some other benefits such as stadiums and so forth going forwards that we should all be very excited about. But most important to us is everybody should be able to play this game, one NFT or not, and enjoy it. Because if you spend $200 buying an NFT with us, then you're damn sure right that we will give you a game that you can enjoy with. That is our responsibility.
I love the sentiment behind that, and the damn sure part of that. Very very awesome. I feel like it's one thing to reward the people who've invested a lot of money in terms of like having whales, own a lot of your NFTs, but it's also another thing to forget, that a lot of the times these things are built on people who own just one or people that own just two. So I love the fact that you guys aren't going to be forgetting about them. Kind of, you've mentioned it once or twice, and it kind of plays into this. But a large portion of the phase one here seems to be reliant on Mars UBI, which, by the way, I love the name for your all's currency, the Reddies. But the fact that to weave it into the storyline, it's the universal basic income. I really do love that little element of it. Can you talk to us a little bit more about the mechanic and some ways you'll be able to use the readies to maybe improve your player cosmetically or whatever that may be.
Yeah, of course. So in bootcamp, the primary way you will be able to use the token is by buying skill boosts. Look out for those creative assets this week. They're really fun about what they're going to look like. And you'll be able to buy those and use them on your player. You can also sell them, by the way, at OpenSea for those who may want to get a few extra. So that's it's kind of a way for us to quasi provide liquidity to the token. Just as a side point, we are actually legally structured to provide liquidity, and we're actually legally structured offshore now, so we can deliver tokens legally. One of the very few projects who can actually do this. I took real legal advice from real lawyers. Yeah, big shout out, by the way, to the Dom from the Creeps, also British based, who helped me out on networks to find the right lawyers. So big shout out to them. But that's what kind of the first phase is going to be. But going forward, those tokens will be used for a whole variety of things, such as temporary boosts, such as improving tactical range. So maybe you can play as an inside forward, a wide forward, a kind of center striker rather than just a striker. They'll be able to use for some cosmetic stuff. The most important thing for us is that we create things that people want to spend them on. One of the big problems of nearly all tokens is you create the token, you're like, well, what can I do with the token? And they say, well, here's a long list of tokens, of things you can do with it. And then you look at it and you say, well, I don't want to do any of those things because they're all shit. And it's like, well, of course the token's therefore valueless. It doesn't matter how many syncs you have if no one wants to use the sync. So we are going, like, although people are like, oh, I hate Web 2. Web 2 is quite good at thinking about this as well, by the way, in terms of use cases. So we are designing in a way that is very, very game related, such that the syncs are valuable that you want to spend the money on, or the money or the token on. And that rather than this becoming a kind of hyper speculation market, although we do expect there to be liquidity markets for this and our governance token, and we will provide it for our governance token as well, or we'll provide some liquidity, not the entire liquidity indefinitely. We, by creating those kind of things, that's going to be really important. And actually, on tokenomics in general, we've actually brought on the team that's worked with NFT Worlds on their tokenomics, are now working with us. So we recognize that there were some area, and they've had some fantastic ideas that we've integrated as well. So we're taking it very seriously in terms of what we're doing. But for bootcamp, the focus will be on your skill boosts. And in our current modeling, we don't think there'll be enough tokens in the ecosystem for everybody to get everything they want on skill boosts. So again, make your choices wisely. Which skill boosts do you think are going to be most valuable for people is going to be another community-based discussion, I'm sure. And I'll just look over the data and see if you guys are right, I guess.
That's awesome. No, I appreciate it when projects do go above and beyond, because I think that the web the Web3 mindset sometimes is that we're so early that we can just do whatever we want, when in reality it's like, hold on, there's a lot of legal precedents that needs to be figured out beforehand, so I appreciate that in terms of the tokenization there. Can you talk a little bit more about timelines here? So when are we looking to start boot camp exactly? When, like you mentioned, comic books. So is there kind of like a maybe like a schedule of events for the project that we can kind of go over and kind of discuss, like how soon we are to some of this stuff?
Yeah. So comic snapshot is on Wednesday. The comic claim will be this week. Next week, I guess, if it's Sunday. So towards the back end of the week coming. We expect the following week after that pretty much everything launches, give or take. So we are very, very close, is what I'd say. I don't want to commit to a date to some of the other stuff just because it may move a few days, but the comic, the registration for the Mars Universal Basic Income and starting your token accrual claiming your player on L2 in the first risky game will all happen in May. The intention is actually that it will happen quite a few days before the end of May for everything, but I'm not going to commit to a day until we're 100% certain. But I will say that everything happens in May and it's comic next week. So, and then the following week should really all be about the game getting up and running. So we are very, very close, is what I would say. And we're trying to work on each kind of mini release being sort of 3 to 4 days apart. So there should be lots of stuff for people to get excited about over the coming next couple of weeks.
Excellent. And you've mentioned it a few times as well. Things will be on L2. What L2 are we leveraging here?
We're using Polygon. We spent quite a long time on this. And the first thing I will say on Polygon, it is our intention to all our holders, we're going to airdrop you Matic. So if you don't have it, you will have it to do transaction costs. I know it's a pain in the arse if you've never used it before, just to get 1 or 2 Matic. So it'll just arrive in your holder's wallet. I know the crypto crash is not great for us, but it's cracking for buying Matic, so it's quite cheap. Polygon is intention. We spent a lot of time on this. On the one hand, there's been some challenges of Polygon, particularly when that sunflower game was going. That was quite bizarre, given it was creating millions and billions of transactions. And we spent actually quite a lot of time talking to the Polygon Games team, and we've got confidence in terms of their scale-up ability that it's going to be capable of dealing with what we see as the long term. And they actually have some other kind of quasi side chains within Polygon if we became mega that we'd be able to use. So that's the intention for us going forwards.
Oh, that's great to know. And I'm a fan of Polygon in a lot of ways. Obviously, a fan, not a fan of it in a lot of the ways you mentioned as well. But that's good to know that the team is definitely thinking about an L2 because again, we're making so many transactions, it would be goofy not to. So thank you for clarifying that. The last thing I'll ask before we kind of get to maybe some user questions out in the audience, what kind of lasting things maybe we didn't necessarily brush up on or talk about that would be important, or any kind of last thoughts that you kind of want people to take away from our conversation here about MPL and the boot camp coming up.
Yeah, for sure. I think what we're doing is really exciting. I think football management is a very, very well suited game to the blockchain. Big spreadsheet meets distributed ledger spreadsheet. Sort of feels like quite a match made in heaven. I would say for those who are maybe not in the MPL and thinking, is this a place I want to spend time? I think we've tried to do a few things aside from what I think is a kind of stellar team that you can read about that's all doxed, and we're actually one of the probably the largest teams in Web3 NFT space. That is the scale of the ambition. We are fully financially transparent. We actually publish to our holders a quarterly/monthly financial transparency report that is more transparent than any other project. And I think any holder probably guarantee you that if you read it. It's on Twitter somewhere. Someone shared it. They shouldn't have done that, but whatever. We are trying to bring also the best of Web 2 design into Web 3. People always neglect UI and UX and experience as if it doesn't matter in Web 3, but it does matter, and Web 2 has done a great job of that, and I think you'll see that not only in the map, if you check it out on the website, map.martianpremierleague.com, but also in the UI and UX for the game. It is designed with a fantastic team from Make Associates, who have really brought the best of Web 2 into the design to give you guys a phenomenal experience. So, I think as a project, I love coming and talking to everyone and asking your questions. And I hope that when you listen to this conversation, you have some confidence that this is a project that, really can deliver something in the long term. And it is not just here for a single hype cycle. It's here to build a fantastic business that is a fun game in a fun world that is exciting to be part of, and that's probably the main thing I want to have people take away.
Great. No, and I think you've done a good job in this conversation of explaining those things. The first question is going to come from Kongzi down here. I'm going to go ahead and add you as a speaker so you can go ahead and ask your question. All right, you should be able to once you connect. Oh, and you have the permissions now, Kongzi.
Hello, how you doing?
Good, thanks.
I just want to say thank you today, Ryan, for hosting this space. It's been very gracious and amazing to listen to. I kind of got in a little late, and my question is for the Martian Premier team. So basically, I have a lot of guys hitting me up. I've seen a lot of clubs forming around Martian Premier League. Can you clarify the validity of clubs, and will they be something that people should be forming, or will the team be officially forming clubs that will be part of the game? And thank you for your time.
Yeah, great question. So I've definitely seen some of the clubs forming. You will be able to have your team irrespective, but there will be some, shall we say, in the kind of top tier of Mars, teams that are maybe available in a slightly different way, but everybody is going to have a chance to mint a team, not mint a team, or have a team, as it were. So yeah, I would highly encourage anyone, who wants to start maybe forming the club narrative of their story, that they should feel free to do so, because when we get to that point, there's going to be opportunities for them to, to build out their team and build out their story, for sure.
That's super exciting. Anyone else have a question here? We'll go ahead and open the floor to anyone. Just go ahead and raise your hand. We'll bring you up to ask that question. Oh, Kongzi again. Sorry, I didn't mean to quickly remove you from. Let's see. Didn't mean to remove you as a speaker. Sorry, I'm getting rugged by Twitter Spaces right now, trying to add you. Metaverse HQ account, if you could add him as a speaker, that'd be awesome. But again, if anyone has their hands raised, we'll bring you up to ask a question.
Everyone's shy, clearly.
It's like in school, when the teacher asks the class for a question, no one ever wants to do it. Usually, hold on. We got Kongzi's back on.
Sorry, I got rugged. I apologize, fellas. I didn't have a second question, but I just wanted to thank you for Clarence and transparency. Thank you so much, guys, and have a wonderful Mother's Day. Thank you so much.
You as well. Thank you. And then we'll bring Chapman on real fast to ask his question. And I apologize in advance if you hear my dogs at any point in time. I just got a puppy today, and my dog is taking a slow liking to him. So they're barking and growling and whatnot. So
no worries.
Shaman, you have the floor. Go for it.
Oh, you're on mute if you're talking, Shaman.
Damn. Oh, now it's working. Hello, how you doing? You hear me now, right?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Excellent. Sorry for the delay. I actually have two questions. First of all, greetings from Argentina. Hi from the bottom of the world. First question is, I've heard that the teams will play in leagues according to skill. And in my case, that I own 11 players and all mixed skills. And if I want to make a team with all my players and mixed up, take from legendary to novice, how will that work? And second question, a small one, is just out of curiosity, as you had this MPL retreat this weekend, is there any news or something you want to tell us about that? I'm really curious. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, so great question. So your leagues would be structured by the average rating of your team. So you wouldn't be. So I'd think about it less as kind of novice versus legendary versus outstanding. But if your average rating, when you've done all your attributes, is, I don't know, 20, then you'd be in a team with people in that kind of range. That's all about the matching algorithm to make it fun. There is a little bit of nuance to that I can't say yet, but will be coming. In terms of the away weekend, nothing we can say now, but we have some quite aggressive hiring plans for stuff both in the MPL and outside of the MPL, but in the Mars universe. They'll be coming in time. If you've you follow these, I know you followed us a while and been part of the team quite a while, Chairman. We like to reveal things on our own schedule in order to not, got to keep the surprise and suspense. But we've made a lot of quite finalized design decisions that have been really important. And, I also think it's just, kind of part of being a mature business to spend time away sort of reflecting about where we are and, where we were going to get to in a way that's sort of maybe not the day-to-day buzz of Discord and Twitter. So I think it's been helpful from that perspective.
Well, excellent. Thank you. Hope you've had a great time. And by the way, happy Mother's Day to all the mums in here. Thank you.
I appreciate that.
Thanks.
Appreciate the question. We got another question from Fred down here. I'll bring him up. And there we go. Waiting for him to connect. And then we have another question from Ken, who's requested once this question is done.
Hey, hello guys. Can you hear me?
We can.
Oh, perfect. Just a quick one. I was thrown out earlier, so in case it was asked before, so I apologize. So I just wanted to know, Corey, so the way I understand it, the teams are going to be put together in a way when you have like the same kit, then you're in the same team. That's at least how I understood it. So my question is actually, I mean, there were like a lot of people, obviously, who choose the same kit, same color or whatever. So let's say you have like, I don't know, like 500 people who choose the black one. So within that group, can I choose actually who I want to play with? Like, for example, if there is a friend or if I have like enough players myself that can build my own team, or is this like randomized? So this is what I would like to know. Thank you.
So for the boot camp, we probably didn't cover this before. When you go on to the L2 and claim your player, there's a choice of 10 different kits. Some are black, some are green, some are red. Now those kits will basically form a kind of quasi group, is how I'd describe it. In the boot camp, that will have some group challenges that can earn them additional tokens. So I would say you're working with everybody in a black kit, Fred. It's not really a choice on your behalf in this specific scenario. So I think it's less of you choosing. It's more, if there's 500 people who pick the black kit, you should work together. And we'll set up kind of social community for that as well to kind of optimize your chance of winning the challenges.
Okay. So if I can ask one follow-up, so that means this doesn't have anything to do with like the 11 people who are later on in the team, in the same team?
No, yeah. So no, later on you're going to have your own teams and stuff. So it's just for the boot camp.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for that question. And for anyone ever listening, any space that I ever host, never feel afraid to ask the follow-up. I went to school to be a documentary film worker, and my God, that is what you're supposed to do. You always ask the follow-up question. But thank you very much, Fred, for that question. We'll go ahead and go to Ken right now for his question, or their question, rather. All right. As soon as it connects, you are on.
Thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Loud and clear.
Awesome. Yeah, so I guess my question was sort of around kind of speaking to the social coordination tools, right? What kind of tools are we going to have available in terms of visibility of other teams, like stats as we accumulate them? I'm seeing people already establish like elaborate spreadsheets to kind of figure out their teams and maybe keep some of their own scoring. But how much of that will be provided in the interface? And can you? I'm not expecting you kind of preempt anything, but if you can give us any sense of color around that, that would be helpful.
Yeah, so there will be kind of leaderboards and stuff that you'll be able to see what other people are doing as the intention in the final UI and interface, but sort of really detailed data of exactly what people have picked and the other teams and so forth, probably kind of less so. I think if we just take one step forward on that question, which is into the full game, which is the intention is to provide you quite a lot of data on your opponents, such that you can strategize and do tactics effectively against them based on what they did in historic games. But for the boot camp, there will be a bunch of leaderboards and how it's going and how they did in certain challenges and so forth. But it's not, there won't be significant kind of tooling. We'll obviously be supportive in the Discord of people being able to jump in chats with each other and creating separate groups, but it'll be, it's not going to be a sort of complete indexing function of the blockchain such that you can see every decision the sort of all 500 people in black have chosen.
Awesome. And if I could follow up on that, what kind of flexibility will we have in terms of the makeup of our teams? So once a team is set, like, would we be able, for example, from week to week or game to game, like sub out players, switch out players, right? Try out other players, or will the teams be relatively fixed? How does that dynamic play out?
So you'll have a squad of players. So you'll obviously be able to make tactical changes and some personnel changes. The intention is that there'll be specific transfer windows every season. It's actually an ongoing debate in the team about the exact mechanic, which is, do we allow one change per week, for example, or do we do kind of maybe 2 different transfer windows in a 6 to 8 week season where people can kind of make changes? We do want to make it feel like, I mean, obviously you can sell your person at any point in time, but they might just be attached to the team until the next transfer window. What we do want to create is that kind of, one of the important design decisions that we have made is that a season, although obviously significantly shorter than a football season in reality, feels like it's got a cadence of interaction that people are engaging with. So, it's got preseason, it's got the transfer window, it's got the gameplay, it's got the mid-season transfer window, it's got the next gameplay, it's got promotion, relegations, winning before moving back into a preseason. So, that it does feel like it is, you are really playing a persistent universe. So I don't think the intention is that, there'll be, a kind of daily transfer approach, but it's something that there'll be windows for, pretty regularly.
Yeah, thanks. That's helpful. I suppose that you'll also have to worry about, once teams are set in certain leagues that are competitive, you would want scenarios where, certain teams can kind of upgrade players and sort of have an edge over.
Exactly.
So
hence the approach. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks a lot. That's helpful.
Thank you for your question.
Awesome. And we'll go ahead and call that as the last question. I want to thank the Martian Premier League and the team for coming on our Twitter space and just discussing the project with us a lot. I'm very excited for this project. Just having this conversation. Very excited. Very confident in the team. I love a fully doxed team. I'll be 100% honest with you, but the artwork and the things that I've seen are very exciting. So I hope this was informational for you guys. And again, thanks a lot, team. And I'll give you guys last word here before we break up.
Well, let me just use the last word to say a big thank you to you guys. I said at the start, but Metaverse HQ, the whole team, you, Ryan, Jacob, Meg, and a number of others have been not only incredibly supportive of us. You've welcomed us back. You vet projects, and you actually continually come to us with interesting collaborations where our projects might fit together. I think that's a phenomenal service, and if anyone is looking to check out or thinking about jumping into an alpha group in the near future, Metaverse HQ is certainly one to check out. And they all sit on voice chat all day, so if you need new friends, they're all there. But yeah, just a big thank you to you guys.
Awesome. Well, that will conclude our Twitter space. Again, thank you, everybody, and I hope you have a wonderful Mother's Day. I hope your mom had a wonderful Mother's Day, and I hope just every person had a great day. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks, everyone.